It's 5 July, Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. The DSA and real democracy. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. All right, let's see. We got some news from Israel, from Yahoo. Israel's deliberate targeting of children, part of ongoing Gaza genocide UN probe. Now imagine that. Israel's out targeting children. Israel's deliberately targeting Palestinian children in what has become a key factor in an ongoing genocide in Gaza. UN investigators charged in a report slammed by Israel. Okay, so you've got a building with Hamas militants in it. They're firing at IDF soldiers, and so you bring the building down. Children are inside purposefully. They die, and then it's Israel's fault that the children died. That's what's going on, and this is what the UN knows, and yet they're still trying to push this on Israel. This, it said, was a key factor in establishing the genocidal intent of the Israeli authorities and security forces to destroy the larger Palestinian group in Gaza. The three-member investigative team, which does not speak for the UN itself, of course, first determined in a report last September that Israel had committed genocide in the war in Gaza, a finding that Israel flatly rejected. In the follow-up report, they said the intense scale and systematic nature of Israel military operations had continued, resulting in the unprecedented death, injury, and trauma of Palestinian children. There were reasonable grounds to conclude that Israel's authorities and security forces have continued to commit the crime of genocide in Gaza. It's like we're living in a completely different world. You got people that are absolutely out of their minds. They've got Israel derangement syndrome, just like you have Trump derangement syndrome, and people are not going to get over it. Israel, which has long been harshly critical of the commission, slammed the report as defamatory and libelous sham. It accused the investigators of ignoring the brutal tactics of Hamas, which ruthlessly attacks Israeli children and uses Palestinian children as human shields. Israeli authorities and security forces have deliberately targeted Palestinian children, resulting in genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes in the Gaza Strip, and war crimes in the West Bank, the team said in a statement. The commission said that several physical and mental injuries, mass trauma, orphanhood, separation, disability, repeated displacements, starvation, and the collapse of education and healthcare had erased childhood in Gaza and would continue to affect the children throughout their lives. Probably they should not have attacked Israel and started this entire thing going. They did. Israel's now blamed for the entire thing, plus genocide, when all they're doing is trying to secure their borders. Israel did not attack them. They were attacked. And when you're attacked, off you go. Zero Hedge. Israeli troops deployed to Somaliland in covert mission. According to our intelligence reports, the Israeli military selected Israeli soldiers of African heritage, especially Ethiopians, so as not to draw attention to themselves and to blend in more easily with the local community. The Somali official said that Israel had deployed a group of 50 soldiers to Somaliland shortly after the recognition and resumption of the war on Iran in late February. On June 17th, Israel Defense Minister Katz admitted to years of clandestine, under-the-radar security operations with Somaliland. During a high-level meeting in Tel Aviv with Somaliland's visiting president, Israeli officials confirmed that Israel is now directly involved in training the breakaway region's military and police. For many years, we cooperated under the radar in a series of operations that will remain classified. Now we are determined to bring our security cooperation to new heights for the benefit of both peoples and for the benefit of stability in the region. In early June, CNN reported that the breakaway Republic of Somaliland had provided Israel with an additional military position on the Horn of Africa, allowing Israeli aircraft to potentially stop long-range flights to Iran. A senior official in Somaliland said that the territory is ready to cooperate with Israel to confront what it described as the threat from the Yemeni armed forces to the highly strategic Bab al-Mandab Strait. The official said that any disruption of maritime security would push Somaliland to expand its relations with Israel, including to the level of a security alliance. The official also noted that Somaliland currently cooperates with partners such as the U.S. and the UAE, which maintain a presence in the territory's Berbera port, and said a similar partnership would be possible with Israel. So we've got them down there. They've been doing this for a long time. You wonder why Israel decided to recognize Somaliland. It's because they've been working together for years. Great stuff. Fox, Joy Reid says she will no longer vote for Democrats who refuse to pledge ending ties with Israel. So she's got TDS and IDS galore. Got some news from Christianity here, from EWTN. Parents sentenced to prison in Brazil after excluding gender content in homeschool curriculum. A Brazilian couple was sentenced to 50 days in prison related to the homeschooling of their two daughters in an unprecedented case that has raised concerns regarding educational freedom and parental rights in Brazil. Otto Dada and Ade Denardi were found guilty of the crime of intellectual neglect by a court of the state of Sao Paulo, even though the prosecution itself had requested their acquittal after concluding that the minors were not suffering from any neglect and were demonstrating appropriate academic and social development. ADF International, which is representing the family in the appeal, denounced the case as a grotesque abuse of criminal law and stated that it would continue defending the couple. The conviction, initially handed down in April of 2026 and currently under appeal before the 7th Criminal Court Chamber of the Sao Paulo State Court of Justice, will remain suspended with the appeal until it is being resolved. Ieda Denardi expressed her distress and defended the right of parents to choose their children's education. As a mother, I cannot conceive of a more dictatorial state than the one that wants me in jail because I chose to exercise my right to direct the education and upbringing of my daughters. My husband and I are hopeful the court will recognize our right to choose the best education for our children and overturn this unjust conviction. The couple began homeschooling their daughters in 2020 after realizing the limitations of the remote public education imposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, they report a significant improvement in their daughter's academic performance and have been able to incorporate family values and faith, that's the problem there, into their education. One of the most striking aspects of the case is the reasoning the judge used to reach the verdict. According to the ruling, the educational program provided by the parents did not include content regarding gender and sex education or tolerance and diversity. Furthermore, the court concluded that the fact that the girls aged 15 and 11 do not enjoy popular music genres such as trap or sertanejo demonstrated an alleged deficiency in their cultural education. Yeah, the judge cited this despite the fact that both girls are pianists with advanced training and are fluent in several languages. In his ruling, the judge further accused the parents of using their daughters as pawns in an ideological struggle, subjecting them to a form of unregulated education, the effectiveness and quality of which lack adequate metrics within the Brazilian legal system, while completely excluding the state's involvement. So, I have a kid, I'm homeschooling him, and I don't want him to listen to rap. That could get me in jail, is the premise there. Unbelievable. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From All Israel, U.S. defense funding bill would turn Abraham Accords member Morocco into strategic partner. Section 1268 of the fiscal year 2027 NDAA calls the Secretary of Defense to develop a 10-year plan to enhance U.S. defense cooperation with Morocco. This is a great deal. They're right around Libya, who is a problem in the world and will only become more so as they align with Russia and Iran, and probably Turkey. According to the text of the bill, the plan will contain several parts, including the establishment of cooperative security locations in Morocco for conducting joint exercises, increased counterterrorism collaboration between the U.S. and Moroccan militaries, a plan to refurbish Cold War-era runways, force modernization to include drone facilities, and increase bilateral and multilateral military exercises such as African Lion. The proposed plan would see the U.S. work to modernize and develop the Moroccan military as a key regional partner. Last year, IDF units took part in the African Lion multinational exercise in Morocco, including conducting joint tunnel warfare and anti-terror exercises alongside Moroccan and U.S. soldiers. Leaked footage of that cooperation sparked outrage across many Arab social media channels. Israel began participating in the multinational exercise in 2023, before the start of the October 7th Gaza war. While Morocco was only one of several Muslim nations to normalize ties with Israel as a part of the Abraham Accords, it is the first country to begin open defense cooperation with the Jewish state. With Israel also aiding the UAE during the 2026 Iran war, these partnerships demonstrate that Israel stands ready to engage in strategic defense partnerships with its Abraham Accords partners, not just economic partnerships. The presence of a defense partner in North Africa helped shield Israel from attempts by Iran to develop proxies in that region capable of causing problems for the Jewish state. The IRGC was one of the suppliers of the Polisario Front in the Western Sahara, which was partially behind the decision by Israel and the U.S. to recognize Moroccan sovereignty over the disputed territory. That's something I mentioned about a year and a half ago. The region is also rich in phosphate deposits, a necessary ingredient in the production of explosives for defense products. With the U.S. and Israel seeking to secure phosphate sources not under Russian or Chinese control, the partnership with Morocco aligns with the strategic interests of both countries. Great stuff. Times of Israel. Finally naming their war dead, Gazan terror groups admit some slain journalists were fighters. Something we've reported on for the past couple of years at least, but now they're finally admitting it. The disclosure was one of dozens made by PIJ and Hamas in recent weeks, announcing the death of its fighters during the war. After years in which the groups declined to identify nearly any of its combatants killed in the fighting. A review by the Times of Israel of many of the hundreds of names of operatives published on official Hamas and PIJ military wing Telegram channels and affiliated accounts found several people who had previously been identified as journalists or other civilians. Once again, Israel's vindicated, but nobody will hear that outside of this prophecy update. They're just not going to care. From all Israel. Israel kills Hamas sniper who also worked as Al Jazeera journalist in Gaza. The IDF killed a Hamas sniper who was working as a journalist for Al Jazeera in a targeted airstrike in the Gaza Strip. Ahmed Washa, the terrorist killed in the strike, worked as an Al Jazeera photojournalist in Gaza while also serving as a Hamas sniper operative, planning and conducting attacks on Israeli troops, the IDF said in a statement. So they're rife with this. We're going to see more of this as the years pass on. Al Jazeera was in there committing terrorist acts against Israel, hiding behind civilian or journalist tags. Zero Hedge. German swimming pool bans visitors who cannot speak German, citing safety concerns. Good job. Gateway Pundit, Denmark moves to ban Islamic call to prayer. Minister says country should not sound like Pakistan. Gateway Pundit, France in shock after 5 North African migrants beat 17-year-old boy to death. But I guarantee you they will not get any long prison sentences and they will not be deported. Mongolia, from Open, Mongolia to sign military technical exchange agreement with South Korea. This is something I brought up probably half a year ago, and now it's done. A decision was made to conclude this agreement, and the authority to sign it was delegated to Minister of Defense Batlutu Damba. Mongolia's cooperation with the MOD of the Republic of Korea has been ongoing since 1999 and includes personal training, the establishment of field schools, and research in the field of security. However, the new initiative aims to elevate the level of partnership between the two states through an official agreement. Good job, Mongolia. Okay, interesting stuff from technology this week. From Zero Hedge, DARPA's X-plane designed to maneuver with bursts of air gets its new wings attached. No ailerons, nothing that moves like this. It's all just airburst to make the plane move. That is cool. Boeing subsidiary Aurora Flight Scenarios has begun installing the wings on the X-65, an experimental drone developed under DARPA's Control of Revolutionary Aircraft with Novel Effectors, or CRANE program. The installation brings DARPA and Aurora a step closer to flying the unconventional, uncrewed aircraft, which was designed to test flight control using only bursts of pressurized air instead of conventional moving surfaces. The X-65's key innovation lies in its active flow control system. 14 AFC effectors embedded across the aircraft's lifting surfaces use jets of high-pressure air to manage roll, pitch, and yaw. This will either replace or supplement traditional flaps and rudders. That means you have no moving parts, just solid wings. Very interesting. The X-65 incorporates both systems to establish performance baselines before transitioning to AFC-only operation. Essentially, it will allow researchers to flight test the tech while minimizing risk. The X-65 conventional surfaces are like training wheels to help us understand how AFC can be used in place of traditional flaps and rudders. The X-65 features a co-planar joined wing configuration with triangle wing sections on each side that merge at the tip. So it's like almost like a triangle instead of a wing like this, plus small extensions for a total wingspan of 30 feet. The triangular wings support testing across multiple sweep angles and feature modular swappable sections for future AFC configurations. The aircraft also includes a twin vertical tail, a chin air intake, and a single exhaust. The uncrewed aircraft has a gross weight of approximately 7,000 pounds. Eliminating moving control surfaces could yield multiple advantages. Removing moving parts could result in improved aerodynamics and efficiency, especially at high altitudes. Reduced mechanical complexity also offers potential weight savings, lower maintenance demands, and greater reliability. For military applications, such systems could have enhanced survivability against battle damage. In other words, you get your wing half blown off and it won't matter because you don't need to worry about the ailerons to get you down. The tech holds a special promise for stealth aircraft. Traditional control surfaces create gaps and protrusions that increase radar cross-section and require constant adjustments in fly-by-wire systems. AFC effectors embedded flush with the airframe could help maintain smoother external contours and lower observability. So very interesting. First time I'd ever heard of that, but they're working on it and hopefully it'll work and we'll be able to, get rid of all these things on the airplane. It'll save all that weight and all that effort. But I don't know if it'll ever make commercial applications, but it's still pretty cool. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From Mail Online. Ticks that spread life-threatening pathogens detected in new counties, creating a perfect storm for devastating diseases. 2 tick species that carry dangerous pathogens are thought to be invading new counties in a New England state, raising concerns that millions more people may be at risk of disease. Connecticut has historically not been an established home for Lone Star ticks, typically found in southern states, or Asian longhorned ticks, typically found in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions. However, both species have now been discovered in several different areas across southern Connecticut, including New Haven, Fairfield, and New London, especially in Waterford. A bite from either tick can spread something I can't pronounce, a bacterial illness that causes flu-like symptoms, including fever, headache, muscle ache, and fatigue. If left untreated, it can cause kidney, lung, or heart failure, respiratory distress, seizures, or a coma. Long-starred ticks are also capable of spreading alpha-gal syndrome, which we talked about. It causes a potentially life-threatening allergy to a molecule found in beef, pork, and dairy. People who develop AGS can have dangerous allergic reaction to these foods and require immediate medical care. If you remember, about a month ago, I said that there were reports that people were shipping these things in the mail and they're arriving at places and they're finding these ticks. If that's true, it would explain why these ticks are suddenly found in a place they were never found before. Mail Online, deadly parasite causing cancer-like tumors in humans and pets is spreading across the United States. The tapeworm known as Echinococcus multilocularis is an insidious parasite that lives inside coyotes, foxes, and other species in the dog family, passing to humans through contact with contaminated soil, water, or food. Once infected, the tapeworms cause a serious disease called alveolar echinococcosis, where cancer-like cysts grow in a person's liver and other organs without their knowledge for years. It can take up to 15 years for serious symptoms to emerge, making an early diagnosis extremely difficult. If left untreated, both people and dogs can die of slow-growing infection. From the Daily Caller, FDA spun autopsy results to downplay COVID vaccine deaths in kids, letter shows. Senator Johnson, he's finding all these things out. Children dying, and they were downplaying it. They were hiding it from the American public so that your kid could get a shot that might potentially kill that child. Morality, BBC. African and Caribbean nations call for a formal apology for transatlantic slavery. Guardian, Barbados Prime Minister announces manifesto for slavery reparations. From the Superior Word News Services, Pastor Garrett of the Superior Word calls for African nations to apologize for selling their people into slavery, calls for them to provide reparations. Yes. From the Post-Millennial, first trans New Hampshire state representative, well, that can't be. He wouldn't have done that. Sentenced to 33 years in prison for child sex crimes. Gateway Pundit, Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger picks LGBT activist who fought girls' bathroom protections for state board role. She says, I'm going to be right down the middle. I'm going to be fair to everybody. And the moment she was brought into office, she's all the way over here. Yep. Horrible human. From the Post-Millennial, Governor Hochul gives sex workers free health care, wants taxpayers to foot the $2.5 million bill. Gateway Pundit, New York Times celebrates Father's Day with cartoon essay about a trans dad whose daughter says he was a girl. Gateway Pundit, far-left Chicago mayor expands transfermicide state of emergency while city suffers nearly 200 murders this year. Transgender cases a tiny fraction of the total carnage. But they have an emergency. Trans people being wiped out. No, it's the blacks in the communities being killed by the hundreds, and they don't care. It just makes their news look better to them. From MSN, child under 12 is euthanized in the Netherlands. Gateway Pundit, dozens of Dem lawmakers push to make sure parents can't tell if kids' TV shows push transgender ideology. Got some other news here from the Post-Millennial. Trump reveals admin is working on creating national right to carry firearms. That would be great. President Trump has said that he is working with lawmakers on legislation that would produce a nationally recognized right to carry firearms, saying that the White House is working to put a bill through Congress. Trump said the NRA President Bachenberg had asked him about a national right to carry. He then asked the crowd, how do you feel about national right to carry? The crowd cheered. You know what that is? That's a free poll. I don't have to pay $300,000 to somebody that doesn't even do polling to give you phony numbers, he riffed following a thunderous round of applause. See, those are real poll numbers. National right to carry. We're working on it. Trump has previously talked about drafting legislation that would rule that states have to respect concealed carry permits from other jurisdictions or a law of national reciprocity, similar to a driver's license. A permit, if it were to be obtained in Pennsylvania, would carry the same weight if you were traveling across state lines to Maryland or other states. Currently, that is not the case. Concealed carry permits do not reach across state lines. Gateway Pundit, the official platform of the Democrat Socialists of America. These are the people we're hearing about in the news. What does their platform say? It includes abolishing the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, and more. The DSA is behind the campaigns of New York City Mayor Mamdani LA mayoral candidate Nithya Raman, Graham Plattner of Maine, AOC, and many others. In addition to creating their own paramilitary group called the Red Rabbits, the DSA has adopted an official platform that must be seen to be believed. They want to remake the U.S. in their image, which means completely destroying it first. Earlier this month, the DSA's top leadership met for an in-person meeting of their National Political Committee, the DSA's governing authority. The document commits DSA to scrapping the U.S. Senate, abolishing the carceral forces of the capitalist state, defunding the Department of War, amnesty for all immigrants, and replacing the President and Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. As more and more members seek election to local and national positions, the platform represents a clear statement of the DSA's views. Its radicalism, therefore, gives a glimpse into how the equivalent of the DSA's board of directors, some of whom have appeared to moderate, actually think about politics. When the NPC took up the document, its presenter urged the DSA to pass it unamended after it cleared the committee unanimously. Instead, DSA leadership added 4 amendments, one on real democracy, calling the replacement of the president and the Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress, another on police and prison abolition, a provision explicitly naming Jerusalem as the capital of a Palestinian state, and ranked choice voting section. The NPC passed 2 of these 4 amendments unanimously, while the real democracy provision prevailed by a razor-thin margin. The document makes clear that achieving this vision would require building a new society from the ground up. Accompanied by sweeping structural changes, it would also defund the Department of War, close overseas bases, and end all economic sanctions, which would include those in states like Iran, Cuba, and Russia. The platform further endorses universal amnesty for illegal immigrants and ending restrictions on marriage, which would presumably entail the legalization of polygamy. These people have already taken over the Democrat Party, and they're just getting started. Yes. Bad news coming to America if those people continue to get seats. Zero Hedge, China's Caribbean listening post. Satellite imagery shows Cuba spy base is completed. The Center for Strategic and International Studies published a report using geospatial intelligence to show that construction of a circularly disposed antenna array in Cuba has been completed. The CSIS states the circularly disposed antenna array in Cuba, just 240 miles from Miami, could be used to monitor or intercept radio transmissions across a wide range of frequencies in the region. The DC-based think tank added that the site may be linked to China and could be used to track sensitive U.S. military and communications activity across the Caribbean, the Gulf of America, and the southeastern U.S. China's activity in the Western Hemisphere was recently uncovered by a select committee's investigation that found Beijing developed an extensive network of dual-use space ground stations and telescopes across Latin America and uses this network to collect intelligence and boost the PLA's warfighting capacity. Adding, the investigation found at least 11 China-linked space facilities established across Argentina, Venezuela, Bolivia, Chile, and Brazil. The Trump admin's campaign to purge China's influence from the Western Hemisphere has intensified this year as a part of a broader U.S. effort to reorder the political map of the Americas. After the collapse of the socialist Maduro regime in Venezuela, the Trump admin is increasingly focused on Cuba, where decades of communist rule have hollowed out the island's economy and turned it into an island playground for U.S. adversaries. Zero Hedge, no greater threat to America's way of life. Senate unanimously passes resolution to condemn CCP leader Xi Jinping. Okay, I would say that that's not true anymore. The greatest threat to America's way of life is right here in America, the DSA. Yes. And they're a part of the Democrat Party of the United States of America. So use that as you would. From CNN, China is counting its wins from the Iran war. Zero Hedge, China eyes Iran's post-war reconstruction in bid to lock up future oil supplies. But there's a problem. I read an article just yesterday. Did I put it in here? I did not. Just yesterday, I think, might have been the day before. They have tons of ships with Iranian oil sitting off China that is not being unloaded, which tells you that China's economy is not doing as well as it should be doing, or they would be unloading it. They're having a problem. So it may not matter that they get Iranian oil if they can't use it. Anyway, I don't know the substance of that article, how it's going to fit into the bigger picture, but it was interesting read. From Breitbart, Tom Cotton proposes bill to counter Chinese cyber threats lurking in Chinese-made networked medical devices. And from the Tech Channel, U.S. expands ban on Chinese telecom and surveillance gear. Good. From Breitbart, Ford hires back former engineers to fix errors caused by AI. Yeah. They fired all these people, and now they have to hire them back because the AI has messed up their company. From the Epoch Times, 13 consecutive months of zero releases at the southern border, says the CCP. 13 months, no releases. From Fox, U.S. decides not to renew the USMCA trade pact. It will seek separate deals with Canada and Mexico. Yes. Hey, you got Carney up there and he wants to play games? Now he's got to fight for him. Who said it? From the moment I picked your book up until I laid it down, I was convulsed with laughter. Someday I intend reading it. Groucho Marx. Yeah. Okay, got a Lester here for you. The DSA's platform is nuts. Wants to strip the U.S. to its guts. No more prisons or cops. They are tares midst wheat crops as they seek to promote untoward cuts. And we're allowing this right here in the nation. Yes. Couple ironies and we're done. First one. This is from Post Millennial. Psychics indicted in $2.5 million fraud scheme. How did they not see that coming? And from Mail Online, Indiana police chief is accused of stealing confiscated guns and reselling them onto the streets of his crime-ridden city. Bad idea. Yeah, bad idea. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.